know about the presidential election that is going to be held on November 5th of this year? Trump and Biden, who are running for president this time, are in a tight race. First, let's take a look at the U.S. presidential election process. The first procedure is caucuses and primaries. A caucus is a vote of only party members, while a primary is a separate election of delegates in each of the 27 states. The presidential election process consists of the first caucus and primary, election of delegates, and the second is the convention to finalize the candidates. Third, the Electoral College is elected. And finally, the Electoral College votes for the president are finalized. Before we get into the approval ratings of the two candidates and what experts say, let's take a look at what Trump and Biden have done so far. Let's start with Trump, who has been indicted on charges of rigging the 2020 election and sex scandals. Trump's campaign has seen him win the Iowa caucuses with the record percentage of the vote and a victory in the New Hampshire primary. He also defeated his leading contender, Nikki Haley, in the South Carolina primary to win a landslide victory in the Republican Party on Super Tuesday with strong turnouts among Republicans. Super Tuesday is the day when there are a lot of primary delegate elections. Thus, Trump became the leading Republican presidential candidate. Next up is Biden's move. Biden has a high percentage of the no-no vote during the Democratic primary elections in many states. Biden's performance was the highest in the New Hampshire primary and landslide in every primary, including South Carolina and Michigan. In addition, on Super Tuesday, the percentage of votes cast in the Democratic Party that no one supported was small. By winning all the races, Biden became the Democratic Party's presumptive presidential nominee. Here's a graph showing the change in approval ratings between the two candidates, with 97% of respondents saying they would re-support former President Trump, compared to 83% for President Biden. In a hypothetical ballot, Trump won 48% of the vote and Biden won 43%. Professor Elman Lichtman's opinion is that Biden has the upper hand. It is said that it is expected that Biden will win, but it is not accurate because there is still lots of time left until the election. Biden's strengths include the fact that he is the current president, which means he has a stable approval rating, and there is no major competition within the party. Long-term economic performance and Trump's lack of broad support are also included in his list of strengths. Trump's strengths include a low standing in the Democratic Party and a divided support for the aging Biden. So what are the factors that will affect the approval rating in the future? First, the change in the composition of the electorate. The second, the setting of the abortion law. And lastly, the current economic performance of the United States. The changing voter composition showed a decline in the Republican Party's primary constituency and an increase in the number of progressively educated white voters. And with the rise of non-white anti-Republican voters, changing the composition of the electorate is a factor in Biden's favor. Next, let's take a look at how to take a stand on abortion law. One case in which the abortion law was ruled constitutional was Roe v. Wade. Public opinion in favor of abortion laws has expanded, and Republicans have moved to repeal abortion laws. With a Democratic majority, they eventually found that the position on abortion was in Biden's favor. Lastly, there is a lot of pessimism about the current economic performance, and if unemployment becomes frequent due to the economic downturn, there will be a crisis for the Biden administration. And when inflation falls, lower interest rates make the economy more optimistic. If you look at the U.S. Consumer Price Index growth rate here, you can see that U.S. inflation is declining, but it is still not stable. Therefore, there are several cases that are not yet predictable. So what are some other key variables that will affect the Trump versus Biden election? As the results of the Michigan contest show, a very serious situation has occurred. The border issue is another factor that disturbs voters. Former President Trump blocked the passage of immigration legislation to maintain political influence, but President Biden's message is not getting across. There are a number of judicial risks to former President Trump, and while the hush money scandal case that Trump is facing trial about could have been the trial of the century if another candidate had been charged with the same offense. Trump is being held to a very different standard. Many Republicans believe that former President Trump is qualified to be president even if he is convicted. The post-Trump versus Biden election will go down in history as a pivotal election for the future of democracy not only in the United States but also around the world. If former President Trump loses, it is expected that he will do everything in his power to overturn the election result. If possible, he may incite violence, but I don't think we need to worry about going to civil war, as Trump has warned. In this sense, he sees Biden as having the upper hand. It's still difficult to predict the exact situation, but we can say that Biden has a better chance of winning. This was the presentation of Group 1 of the ShinsongUNESCO Club. Thank you for listening.